I had a stench in my hands. The poverty of my clothes was screaming. People were staring at me. They did not know that my honor came out of the mud of the gutter in which they saw me descend. They didn't know that the dustbin I came out of became my strength. Today, that rich young man is staring at me. His car is worth crores. His suit is a designer's. He has the latest phone in his hand. But why is he silent? Because he saw his own face. My eyes, my nose, my lips. All things are the same. La mejor. He only knows that we have forms. I know everything. I know that 22 years ago, in a rich bungalow in the same city, a child was born. A few hours later, her mother died. My father was intoxicated, and the 21-year-old elder brother decided one night, I'll grow old raising him. It is better to get rid of it. It was a winter morning. There was moisture in the air, and fog covered the city, with a thick blanket of smoke, in an old neighborhood of Alagar, where the streets were narrow and the houses glued to each other. An old woman sat by the stove with her bent waist and smoked the fire. Her name was Fatima. His hands bore the scars of years of toil. His fingers twisted with joint pain. But there was a strange radiance in his eyes. She was quietly breaking wood when suddenly a child's cry came from inside the room. Fatima stopped at once. Her daughter, Zainab, who was 9 years old, ran out. Yasserbai wakes up and cries. Fatima smiled and put her hand on Zainab's head. Go, bring them here. I'm heating the milk. Zainab ran inside and a few moments later came out with little Yasser in her lap. Yasser was only 2 years old, but there was a glint in his eyes that always amazed Fatima, a glow that did not fade in spite of poverty and deprivation. Fatima took Yasser in her arms. His clothes were old. An old yellow sweater with fingers sticking out of it, but he was clean. Fatima put her hand on his shoulder. Digaikab. Yasser stopped crying and looked into Fatima's eyes. It wasn't a normal day. Fatima was feeling a strange uneasiness since this morning. His heart was heavy. He had a slight pain in his chest since last night, but he didn't tell anyone. He knew he didn't have time. Tabil, Zainab, and Yasser depended on him. After heating the milk, he made Yasser drink, then made bread and tea for Zainab. There was silence in the house, only the sound of the fire. Am I going to school? Zainab asked, looking at her old uniform with grafts on it. Fatima took a deep breath. Yes, I have to go. But today's the test. It studied you. Zainab nodded her head. Yes, I read it at night. Fatima's heart was filled with pride. Zainab was intelligent, always came first in school. But there was fear in his eyes. He knew that when Zainab matriculated next year, it would not be possible for him to afford school fees. Books, uniforms, all of them. Mom, are you okay? Zainab noticed the worry on Fatima's face. Fatima tried to smile. Yes, I'm fine. You're ready. When Zainab went to get ready, Fatima began to feed Yasser something. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if he was about to scream. He leaned against the table and closed his eyes. The pain went away in a few moments, but the fear stayed in his heart. Zainab stood at the door and called out. Fatima opened her eyes. It's nothing. It's just a little bit. You're going? Zainab looked doubtful, but then said, Yes, Mother, I went. I'll be back early in the evening. Don't stop anywhere on the way. Go straight to school and come back. Yes, Amma. After Zainab left, Fatima gave Yasser some toys to play with that she had collected from the garbage. Then she sat down on her bed. His mind wandered into the past. That was 2 years ago. Fatima used to live in the same small house with her daughter Zainab. Her husband died after a long illness, and she worked at home to support herself and her daughter. Life was hard, but they had a purpose. On a cold night, when the rain was falling slightly, Fatima was on her way to the rich area of the city for some work. She forgot the way and went out into a street where there were big bungalows. Suddenly, he saw a garbage can lying open on the side of the road. There was a strange sound coming from it, a sound that sounded like the cry of a small child. Fatima at first thought that perhaps her ears were not listening properly. But as she got closer, the sound became clearer. His heart pounded. He removed the lid of the box, and seeing the scene there, his rogue stood up. A small child, only a few days old, wrapped in an old cloth, was yearning. His face was blue and he was crying loudly. Fatima immediately picked up the baby. His body was cold. He hid it in his coat. When she got home, she bathed the baby, put on warm clothes, and tried to breastfeed. Zainab was surprised. Where did this child come from? Fatima wrapped the child in warm clothes and said, Allah has given. Girl, we have to accept it. That night, Fatima spent the night awake with the baby. He named him Yasser. In the morning, she took the child to the doctor. The doctor said that the baby is healthy, but he needs mother's milk. Fatima spent her last savings to buy a can of milk. The idea of filing a police report came up, but Fatima's heart forbade it. He knew that, if this child belonged to a rich family, he would get it back, but how would he be treated? Who threw it in the trash? She couldn't take the risk, and then he decided. He looked at the sky and said, "O Allah, if you give me this son, I will never leave him alone. I'll feed him with my blood." Yasser slowly began to grow up. Raising 2 children wasn't easy for Fatima, but she didn't give up. She worked in 3 houses during the day, selling vegetables on the roadside. In the evening, Zainab also began to contribute. She would do menial jobs on her way back from school, taking care of Yasser. But today, 2 years later, Fatima felt that time was short. His powers were responding. Fatima suppressed her anxiety and stood up. She groomed Yasser and took him to work with her. The mistress of the house she worked in was a middle-aged woman named Shanas. She was kind to Fatima, often giving her old clothes and food. When Fatima arrived with Yasser, Shanas was surprised and asked, "Hey Fatima, did you bring Yasser with you today?" Fatima tried to smile. No one was at home. Shanas tried to lift Yasser in her lap, but Yasser got caught by Fatima. "Let's not talk. You clean the kitchen. I'll take care of it." Fatima went to work, but her mind was on Yasser. Suddenly, he felt a terrible pain. He shouted, "Oh," and then fell to the ground. Shanas cried out. Fatima was lying unconscious. Her face was white. Shanas immediately called her driver and took Fatima to the hospital. Yasser was crying. Shanas took him along with her. At the hospital, doctors examined Fatima. It was a heart attack. After a few hours of struggle, the doctor came out and told Shehnaz, "We are trying our best to save her, but the situation is serious." Shehnaz picked up the phone and informed Zainab's school. Zainab rushed to the hospital. His eyes were full of fear. "Where is my mother?" Shehnaz hugged Zainab. "The doctor is here. My daughter, pray for me." In the evening, the doctor came out. The expression on his face said it all. "I'm sorry. We couldn't save them." Zainab's scream shattered the silence of the hospital. She fell to the ground. Yasser, who was sleeping on Shehnaz's lap, woke up and started crying. Fatima was gone. The old woman who picked up a child from the garbage left her daughter and her adopted son helpless. Fatima's funeral prayers were conducted in a simple manner. The villagers arranged for his burial by making donations. Shehnaz also provided financial assistance. But the biggest question was, what will happen to Zainab and Yasser now? Zainab was only 11 years old. Yasser was 2 years old. Shehnaz first wanted to keep Zainab with her, but she was not able to decide about Yasser. She had children of her own. And the husband was also not in favor of keeping the alien child at home. A week later, Shehnaz came to talk to Zainab. "What do you want, girl?" Zainab's eyes were swollen, but her voice was firm. "I will take care of my brother. You're a child. How will you do it?" "I'll do it. My mother taught me not to give up." Shehnaz gave an envelope. "Here's some money. I'll give you from time to time. But you also have to work." Zainab took the envelope. "Thank you, John. I'll work." From that day on, Zainab's life changed. She dropped out of school, although the school principal insisted that she continue studying. But Zainab did not have a choice. He started working at home. She would wake up early in the morning, get Yasser ready, and then take him to work. She would return home in the afternoon, feed Yasser, then go to another job in the evening. Yasser grew up. At the age of 3, Zainab enrolled him in a small school that provided free education. But Yasser did not seem to be in the mood to study. He was mostly playing. When Yasser was 6 years old, Zainab realized that it was no longer possible to afford school fees. Uniforms, books, all of it. One day he said to Yasser, "Brother, you will have to leave school." He asked, "Why?" "We don't have money." Yasser was silent. He had seen that his sister worked hard day and night. She had blisters on her hands. She was getting weaker day by day. "Okay, sister, I'm going to work." And from the next day, Yasser started doing small jobs. Delivering goods to shops, collecting garbage, bringing tea to customers. But the income was very low. When Yasser was 12 years old, he met a laborer named Iqbal. Iqbal saw that this boy was hardworking, but was not getting work. "Will you work with me?" Iqbal asked. "What is the work?" "I take the contract of cleaning the drains of the city. The work is hard, but the money is good." Yasser thought, then said, "I will do it." On the first day, when Yasser got down into the gutter, he started feeling nauseous. The stench was unbearable. The workers laughed at him. "Hey, baby, it's not your job. Go and work somewhere else." But Yasser didn't give up. He was with Iqbal when he got 500 rupees after working all day. His eyes lit up. It was a sum of money he had never seen before. He came running home. Look what I found. When Zainab saw the money, tears came to her eyes. Where did you get that from? Yasser narrated the whole story. Show me Zainab's heart. Brother, this work is very dirty. You will fall ill. But, sister, it fetches good money. I'll take a few days off and find another job. But in a few days, 10 whole years passed. Yasser was cleaning the gutter. The stench of the gutter filled his hands. The clothes were always wet. People would run their noses at the sight of him. But he remained silent. There was a strange power in his silence. Zainab's health was deteriorating day by day. She was weak and had back pain. Yasser repeatedly asked her to leave the job, but Zainab did not agree. I want to marry you, brother. You want money. Yasser laughed. Sister, first your health is good, then my marriage. But both knew who would marry a poor, gutter-cleaning boy like Yasser. They had a kutcha house to live in. Food was often fast. When Yasser was 22 years old, Iqbal uncle told him that a big drain in the rich area of the city was closed, and a worker was needed to clean it. The work will be hard, but the pay will be good. Yasser was ready. He arrived at the rich area early in the morning with the workers. He had never seen the area before. Huge bungalows, lush green lawns, cars that he had only seen on TV. Work began. Yasser got down into the gutter, started cleaning the mud and dirt. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the door of a house. There was a young man standing there, wearing expensive clothes, mobile phone in hand, and he was looking at Yasser. Yasser was surprised. The young man's face was astonishing. It seemed to be as if he were looking at his own reflection in the mirror, but in clean clothes. The young man was also looking at Yasser in surprise. He slowly approached. Who you are? Yasser wiped his face with his hand. I'm a worker. What's your name? The young man's face lit up. My name is Yasser. They both stared at each other. The workers laughed. Hey, he's your brother. Amir Yasser took out his mobile phone and took a picture. Tell me, I will meet you. Yasser gave his address. Although he doubted why the rich boy would want to come to their hut. When Yasser reached home in the evening, he narrated the whole incident to Zainab. Zainab took a breath. Did you tell him? Yes. Why? Zainab was silent. For years, she wanted to tell Yasser a secret, but always avoided it. He thought it was time today. Brother, sit down. I want to tell you something. Yasser sat down. Zainab took a deep breath. You weren't born of your mother. Yasser was surprised. What does it mean? My mother picked you up from the garbage bin. Your real mother died a few hours after you were born, and your father. You've been dumped. Yasser's face turned white. His mind was racing. You're lying. No, that's true. My mother told me. He took you and laid down his life for you. Yasser stood up. His chest heaved. He went out and wandered the streets all night. The next day, Amir Yasser arrived. He had arrived in his expensive car, and the whole neighborhood was stirred. Poor Yasser called him into the house. Both sat in front of each other. Both had similar shapes. But one's clothes were covered with mud. The other's designer clothes. Amir Yasser said, I have shown your picture to my father. They are surprised. They want to come to our house. Poor Yasser thought, then said, All right, I will come. This was the house of Amir Yasser, 22 years ago. An innocent child was thrown into the garbage. It was a magnificent bungalow, marble floors precious, paintings, servants galore. When poor Yasser entered, he felt a strange suffocation. There was wealth in the house, but not happiness. There was a strange silence in the air. Amir Yasser took him to the lounge. An old man was sitting there with a glass of wine in his hand. He seemed to be intoxicated. It was Tariq Ali, the father of both Yassers. When Tariq saw poor Yasser, his eyes widened. "Who's this?" "Dad, this is the boy I showed you the picture of. The star is near." There was a strange light in his eyes. "What's your name?" Tarag's hand trembled. The glass of wine was broken. "San," the poor man asked. "Your son?" Tariq hid his face in his hands. "San died?" Amir Yasser asked. "What are you saying?" Tariq nodded his head. "Nothing. I'm just talking." But doubt arose in the heart of poor Yasser. He knew there was something wrong here. Meanwhile, another man came in. He was about 45 years old, but alcohol and luxury had made him old. It was Shar, Tariq's son, the same one who had thrown his younger brother in the garbage 22 years earlier. When Sharyar saw poor Yasser, his face turned yellow. "Who's this?" "That's my friend," Yasser answered. Sharak said sarcastically, "Such dirty people are not allowed to come to our house. Get him out." Poor Yasser looked into the eyes of the Sharyar, and he felt a strange thing, fear. There was fear in the city's eyes. "I'm going by myself," poor Yasser said, and walked out. On the way, his mind was working fast. The shapes are the same name. The strange reaction of the father. The fear of the older brother. It was all just a coincidence. For the next several days, poor Yasser went to work. But his mind remained focused on the rich family. He knew he had to know the truth. One day, he said to Iqbal, Uncle, can you help me find an address? I want to tell you about an incident that happened 20 years ago." He asked, "What happened?" Yasser tells his story. Iqbal listened carefully, then said, "Son, this work can be dangerous. Rich people will do anything to hide their secrets. I want to know the truth." Iqbal nodded his head. "Okay, I'll help you." Iqbal had contacts with many people in the city. He looked at the old records. Hospital records, police reports, and newspapers. A week later, Iqbal came to Yasser. "I found something." He picked up an old newspaper. It was 20 years old. There was a small news. A son was born to a rich businessman. The mother died. Tariq Ali's name was in the news. His mother's name was Sena. The date of birth was what Fatima had told Yasser. And look at this. Iqbal took out another piece of paper. It was a missing report from the police. But it was marked closed. Missing person, Tariq Ali's younger son. Date of birth, 10 days after birth. Why was the report stopped? Yasser asked. When the rich people want, the police shut down the report. Yasser's heart was beating fast. But this does not prove that I am the same child. But I've got someone else I need to meet. Iqbal took Yasser to an old area of the city. There lived an old woman whose name was Habiba. She used to work at Tariq Ali's house. When Habiba saw Yasser, her eyes welled up. "Oh my God, you're alive." He asked, "Do you know me?" "Yes, I know. I saw you with my eyes. It was there when you were born. Your mother, B. She was very good. He had blood loss after you were born. And they will go." Habiba cried and told the story. "Your father, Tarek Saib, was already an alcoholic. His mother's death devastated him. And your big brother, the city, he didn't like you. He said you would be part of his inheritance. And then what happened? One night, the city picked you up. I asked him where he was going, and he said he was going to the hospital. Because you're sick. He didn't take you to the hospital. I saw him throw you in the trash. Yasser's heart was burning. You didn't do anything. I told Tarek, sir, but he was drunk. You were sick and died. They told the police that you were missing, but then closed the report. My mother. Is she a woman? I've seen him. She left that night. I'm sure he saved you." Yasser was silent. The truth was now clear. Habiba took out an old jewel. "Take this. This is your mother, Sana Bibi. He gave it to me before he died." It was an old silver pendant with Yasser written on it. Chapter 9. The Meeting That Changed Everything. Yasser put the pendant in his throat. Now he has proof. But he knew the evidence wasn't enough. He has to act wisely. He decided to meet Amir Yasser. He found her in a cafe. Amir Yasser asked, "Have you thought about anything? I want you to take me home. I want to talk to your father. I'll tell you a secret, but only when they're both there." Amir Yasser looked surprised, then said, "Okay." The next day, poor Yasser was again in this rich bungalow. This time he came in clean clothes, even though they were old. Tariq, Sharyar, and Amir Yasser were all present. He asked, "Who are you?" Poor Yasser slowly pulled out his pendant. "Do you recognize him?" When Tariq saw the pendant, he breathed his last. "This is Sana." "Where'd you get that?" "My mother gave it to me." "Your mother. Your mother is dead. One of my parents died, but he gave it to me." The sage said angrily, "What is this nonsense?" "Chimauchi." Poor Yasser looked at the Sharyar. "You're scared. And you know who I am." "I don't know." "You know. 22 years ago, one night, you put an innocent child in the garbage can. You said, 'I'll grow old while I'm raising him. It's better to get rid of him.'" The town's face turned white. "You're lying." "I'm not lying. I'm the same kid." Amir was surprised. "What does it mean?" Poor Yasser told his whole story. Fatima's death, Zainab's sacrifices, the work in the gutter, and then the two of them meet. The star began to cry. "San, my little brother, you're alive." "This a lie. It's after our money." But Tariq looked at Sharyar angrily. You wanted to kill my son. That's a lie." Poor Yasser said softly, "I am ready to get my blood tested." There was silence. Blood test results were obtained. The DNA of both patients was 99.9% identical. They were brothers. Tariq hugged poor Yasser. "Forgive me, son. I lost my mother after her death. I didn't look for you." Sharyar refused, but the evidence was against him. Yasser was surprised. He found out that the man he used to see cleaning the gutter was his blood brother. Tariq said, "You will stay here now. It's your home. But poor Yasser shook his head. My home is there. Where's my sister? She is my mother, my everything. But you are rich. What have you given? Your son is far from you. Your other son is a murderer. My wealth is my sister's love, my honesty. The town threatened. You can't do anything. We have lawyers. We have influence. Poor Yasser smiled and said, I don't have to kill you. I have to punish you. And then he started his plan after poor Yasser contacted the media. At first, no one paid attention. But he started a blog in which he wrote his whole story. The blog has gone viral. People read the story of a boy who was picked up from the garbage, raised by an old woman whose sister sacrificed her youth over him, and then found out that he was the heir of a rich family whose older brother tried to kill him. The newspapers published the news. Television channels made programs on it. Tariq Ali's family came under the media glare. Sharyar tried to stop the news through lawyers, but it was too late. In a TV interview, Garib Yasser said, I don't want wealth. I just want justice. I want people to know what kind of atrocities happen even in rich families. Zainab also gave an interview. He told the story of Fatima's sacrifice. People were crying. Police registered a case against Shah Jahan, a case of attempted murder in childhood, which came to light 22 years later. The case was heard. Habiba was a witness. She told how she saw Sharyar throwing the baby in the garbage. Sharyar's lawyers argued that it was all a conspiracy by poor Yasser so that he could get rich. But blood tests and other evidence were against them. Eventually, Sharyar was sentenced to prison. Tariq testified against his son. Leaving the court, Tariq said to poor Yasser, whatever you want. Take it. All my wealth is yours. Yasser nodded his head yes. I'll take you hunting. My name, my identity. I'm your son, but I don't want to be the Yasser you wanted. I will be the Yasser that my mother Fatima brought up, that my sister Zainab brought up. Poor Yasser took a portion of Tariq's wealth, but not for himself. She created a trust, which she named the Fatima Trust. The purpose of this trust was to provide education to poor children and employment to women. He began to remodel his old house. Schools were built, hospitals were built, and jobs were created. Zainab married a good man. He's happy now. Amir Yasser also changed his life. He gave up alcohol, taking an interest in his father's business. There was a special love between the two brothers. Tariq gave up the drug. He repented of his sins. She started working at Fatima Trust. A year later, the area of the city where the gutter once flowed was now a park. The name of the park is Fatima Park. At the opening of the park, poor Yasser was standing. There were people around him. Those who had helped him, Iqbal uncle, Zainab, Amir Yasir, Tariq, and hundreds of poor people whose lives he had changed. Yasser sighed. When I used to get down into the gutter, people used to look at me with contempt, but today I want to tell them that every human being has dignity, even if he lives in the gutter. My revenge was not that I imprisoned my brother or humiliated my father. My revenge was that I showed them the mirror. I showed them what their wealth made them and what my poverty made me. And today, I proudly say that I am the same Yasser who was picked up from the garbage. Because the same Yasa learned the power of truth, learned the importance of love, and showed the path of justice. People clapped. There were tears in Zainab's eyes. Tarak's head hung in shame. Amir Yasser hugged his brother. The story doesn't end here. Yasser's life is still going on. He runs the Fatima Trust, educates poor children, gives employment to widows. Sharyar is in jail, but Yasser goes to meet him. He wants his brother to repent of his sins. Tarak spent the rest of his life asking for forgiveness. He goes to Fatima's grave every day, offers flowers, prays. Amir Yasser began to follow in his brother's footsteps. He also participates in charity work. Zainab is happy. He has 2 children who are very much in love with Yasser Chacha. Yes, sir. He is still the same today. Simple clothes, simple life. But her eyes were the same as Fatima's, the light of truth, love, and justice. His story is a lesson for anyone who runs after wealth. Wealth does not give respect, it gives humanity. Wealth does not give power, it gives the truth. And Yasser had learned this lesson very deeply. Conclusion, a lesson never to be forgotten. This story is not just a myth. This is the story of countless people who live in poverty, but live with dignity. It is the story of those who have wealth, but lose humanity. There is a mirror inside every human being. Some people keep this mirror clean, some make it dirty. Yasser kept his mirror clean, even if he had to get down into the gutter. And when he showed the mirror to others, they were afraid of their own reflection. Truth is the greatest reward. And Ypsilon. Azar took the revenge